Rolling.
Adrienne, do you want to lead us off?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. Welcome to everybody. It's always one of my favorite things to meet you all for the first time. My name is Adrienne Furness, and I'm the Executive Director of the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. And we're a 42-year-old nonprofit. We're focused on broadband policy, and we work to make sure everybody in the United States can use and benefit from high quality, affordable broadband. So a lot of what we do is we work with local and state and national leadership just to make sure that all the rules and regulations that oversee broadband are the kinds of things that make all of your lives easier in terms of building networks, making sure that they're affordable, and that everybody has the digital literacy skills to use them for things like education and telehealth and economic development, civic engagement, and all the things that, of course, many of us did for the first time actively as a result of the pandemic. Part of what we do is we provide publications and newsletters. We'll ask you at several points whether you want to sign up for information that Benton provides to the Broadband for All community. We spend a lot of time talking to policymakers, and I think, Bill, this is our 55th group. If I go back to counting all the people in the 4 or now 5 states we've been in, we've worked with 55 counties. So welcome to the program, and I'm now, I guess, Bill, turning it over to you. Is that the next thing to go over?
No, you talk about the project partners.
I sure can. Next slide. Thank you. Oh, there we go. I'm doing that right now. Now I'm going to talk about the project partners. First of all, I do want to thank Nancy, who is at the top. Go ahead to the next slide. Thanks. Well, first I should tip my hand to the fact that Illinois Soybean Association is our funder for this program. And as you get into it, you'll see why they're very interested in making sure that there's good broadband throughout Illinois, because it has such a big impact on agricultural production. And so they've been very motivated to underwrite not only this cohort's activities, but the other 6 counties that Bill and Reed are working with. But I do want to thank under our collaborators, Nancy from Illinois Extension. She has been our partner in every single program we have run in Illinois, and she'll be walking you through your survey, which is the mechanism where you outreach to all of the, or as many as you can, people in your county to talk about their broadband experience. We also have representatives from the Illinois Broadband Lab who will work with you as community liaisons, and a really extraordinary young woman named Shubika Argawal who will walk you through the broadband maps for your county. And she's much admired by other mapping personnel in other states because she's really got a handle on this, and she'll be really helpful to you as you look at where broadband is and is not in your county. We obviously, at the end of this whole program, the purpose is to try to get money to build better broadband in your county. And one of those places where you can go for funds is the Illinois Office of Broadband, which is getting about $1 billion from the federal government. And we'll be spending that money toward the end of 24 and into 2025 to try to get broadband to what we call unserved or underserved areas in Illinois. And finally, John Kostelnick is here on the call today. You can wave, John. There he is. And he's from Illinois State University and the GEOMAP group, which is a GIS mapping department within Illinois State and really has brought some very interesting, he and his partner, Jonathan Thane, have brought some really interesting new tools that we'll talk to you about as the program progresses that really do some economic modeling to show you about the impact broadband can have on corn and soy production, and also really examine some of the high points, or what we call vertical assets, like silos and grain bins, other tall building structures that might be used for equipment, particularly wireless equipment that could get broadband into your communities and particularly into farmers' fields. Next slide, Reed. So we have here the goals of our various sponsoring partners and collaborators. Look, the first thing is that we're really trying to engage people in your community, and it starts with your teams. And Bill will spend a lot of time talking about the importance of the team as we move forward. And we really try to give you all some what we call tools and data to make your job easier. So we're really trying to get you to understand what assets do you have in your county that can be used toward this effort that you're undertaking with us. As I said, this sharing the agricultural economic cost benefit analysis is what John Kostelnik will provide each county a series of maps and data, very easy to read, very understandable. Don't have to have a math degree to get into this. I find these to be very compelling storytelling for people who might even be a little reluctant to get involved or support this effort, both with their time or the county's money. So I think it's important. Those maps are really important. Ultimately, as I said, at the end of this, you're really creating a community action plan. And you emerge from this process with a PowerPoint presentation that allows you to go around and talk to people about your effort, and particularly to set you up to apply and get your fair share of this federal and state money that's coming down the pike. Next slide, Reed. So here's a publication that we did after our pilot round, which finished earlier actually at the end of last year, early this year. And it really talks about these tools we're going to introduce. We'll deliver these slides to you afterwards. So if you do want to click on the link over there and flip through the report, it kind of gives you a really nice overview of what you're going to experience. And in particular, gives you a look at what the first 5 counties did as they went through the program in Illinois. And so you'd be looking at what your peers have done and how they used this data to try to, as I said, get to better broadband in their communities. So that's it for me, Bill. And I think that now we're over to you to talk to the teams. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Adrienne. We're really excited to have a group of 6 counties. And we got some early in our recruitment, and we got one quite late, but happy to have everyone as a part of this program. And I know it's a big ask that you as community leaders have talked to people in your community to participate 16 weeks, 2 hours a week, and to be a part of your team. It's great to have you on board in this program, and I think you're really going to have an excellent time. We're going to ask folks, the team leader from each community, to just tell us really 3 things about your county today. Who is here on the call today? Who else is on your team that isn't necessarily here today? And then kind of what's your county's broadband story? What efforts have you done so far to improve broadband? Do you have good broadband in some parts of your county, not so good in other parts? But kind of tell us what motivated you to jump into this program. Let's start with Boone County. If Boone, you're talking, we can't hear you, so you might be muted.
I'm not sure. I've been a little bit behind on the project, and so I'm catching up on things. I know Erin Marshall is also available here if she's got some more input. But yeah, like I said, I'm working on helping out with wherever properties I can as part of the mapping process. So yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And I'm on here too. I'm Becky Tobin. I'm the county administrator here in Boone. I may not be on all these calls over all the 16 weeks, but I'll be somewhat involved. We're a somewhat rural county, but we're also, there's parts of our county that are urban and are growing. We have the Stellantis plant here and a lot of expansion going on, but we also are still very agricultural based. And there's definitely a lot of need in certain areas of the county. So we're just looking to learn and be part of the process.
Good. And who else all on your team, Becky?
There's more, Erin
Erin
Marshall. Yeah, Erin Marshall should be on. She's our grants manager. So, she's an important part of this process as well. And I believe Justin Crone, I'm not sure if he's on, that's our county engineer. He will be part of that as well.
Okay, good. And so one of the things that you'll hear from me over and over again is about the importance of the team and to have folks that are part of county government, but also parts of who are township officers or rural farmers or people from the education system, really maximizing your ability to reach out into the entire community because that's going to be an important part as Nancy talks about the survey, just as having a great impact on your community. It's not enough to have just folks from like a county government. So you'll hear me, probably you might describe it as harping on that for the throughout the program. Let's hear from Johnson County.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mitch McClellan. I am the Johnson County Treasurer. Guess I'm kind of team leader at this point. On this call, we have a few members from our team. We were able to put together a team of 14 or 15 so far, and there's more interested. But on this call, we have Jamie Curley, who is the superintendent for one of our schools for Buncombe School District. And then we have Jody Johnson, who's also a Johnson County native and works with the University of Illinois Extension Branch. So we've got on our team several educators, people that work in administrative positions with education. We've got a couple others. We've also got a Johnson County commissioner on the team. So we try to get a pretty good range of different areas to participate so we can have a good reach of knowledge. Our county's pretty rural. We only got a couple of incorporated areas. We have one city and a bunch of villages. So several of our areas that are even our villages have difficulty in getting any serviceable broadband. The one that we have, there are several issues with it. It's not very reliable. So, and then we face a lot of like geographical difficulties with some of these areas, like Buncombe, the village of Buncombe. I mean, it's built in the side of a bluff, and so there's a lot of rock. It'd be really hard to try to get fiber there. So we've got to get innovative in our ways of thinking of how to try to get broadband there, which is one of the things we're looking forward to with this program, is figuring out solutions, working together as a team, and we're excited to be part of this program.
Great. And Mitch, I should, just to give you hope, we just heard from our one of our favorite communities, the village of Elsa, that participated in this program early on, right on the Mississippi River bluffs, right into a big canyon or crevice in the in the Bluff, and they've now just announced that they're getting fiber to the home through their efforts. And so there is hope, and this process can and hopefully help make that happen.
Absolutely. That's
Lawrence
actually good
County.
news.
You guys are muted there. There we go.
Are we okay now, Bill?
You're great.
Okay, my name is Joe Wager, and I'm kind of the point man down here in Lawrence County. I'm a member of the Lawrence County Industrial Development Council. With us today is Jim Brewer, our county board chairman to my left, and over here at the other side is Don Wagner. He is the administrator of the Lawrence County Industrial Development Commission here in Lawrence County. Some of our team members are John Sapini, he's with our Mid-America Air Center. He's a board member on that. Glenn Leasty Jr. is the Lawrence County Farm Bureau board member. We got Jakey Walker. He's the Unit 10 District School Superintendent over in the west side of the county. We got Dennis Green. He's the president of the Lawrence County Farm Bureau. We got Heather Schultz. She's a representative of the Lawrence County Memorial Hospital. Amy Marley is the administrator of the Lawrence County Health Department, and I think Chad Cruel was with us, and I don't believe he's with us anymore. So that's our group. Here in Lawrence County, we're a rural county. We've got 2 towns, I would call them, and probably 3 villages. Internet is sparse at best in the rural areas, you know, and one of the things that motivated me the most to get involved in this is I have actually none where I live at all. I'm operating on a Verizon hotspot, and I'm not operating very well. So, you know, we're excited about it. I think it's going to be very good for the economy here in Lawrence County if we can get. I know it will be if we can get some better internet. So that's about our story. You know, we have. Basically, we're a farming agriculture community, and we were a former oil. We used to have an oil refinery here, and it's closed. And so basically, we're just we're getting by, and we're looking for economic development as well. So that's
Great.
my
Well, and when people ask me, you know, who should be on the team, I think, you know, the folks that are on an economic development board generally are exactly the folks that we want on our community broadband teams, because this is an economic development project to be able to attract that investment into your community to support a vibrant community. So thanks so much for that, your guys' work there. Lee County.
Hold on one. Also with Lawrence County is Tara Burster. She's our University of Illinois Extension director for our county here in Lawrence County. So she did join us today.
Oh, good. Welcome. That, you know, University Extension is such a powerful force if folks make use of that, just reaching into the resources of the university. Very impressive. Last week we had a tour around rural Illinois with another cohort of communities we're working with right now. We're midway through that process. And in Logan County, we heard fascinating information from University of Illinois Extension ag researcher that was really fun to learn about. So that's great to involve your extension service. Lee County.
Hey,
good morning, everybody. I'm Jeremy England, the Lee County Administrator. Lee County was indeed the late to the party county that Bill was referencing earlier. So thanks to Bill and Mike Delaney, our extension representative from the area, for getting us involved in this program. You know, part of our team members and folks that we have on today is Allie Huss. She is a Lee County board member, lives in a you know, unincorporated, very rural area of Lee County. So she has a high interest of being here, as her broadband access is very limited in that area. We have Justin Carr, one of our IT professionals in the county, on today. We have Tom Demmer. He is the executive director at Lee County Industrial Development Association, on today. Other folks from our team, Jack Scrogstad, another Lee County board member, We have 2 individuals from our Lee County GIS department. Shelley Dallas is our 911 director. Chris Tennyson, our ROE regional superintendent of schools. Ashley Urbis, the Lee County Farm Bureau director. And I have David Helmick, our Sauk Valley Community College president, tentatively going to be joining this cohort as well. Lee County is, about 85% ag land. We do have a handful of mid-sized communities, and our largest community and county seat, Dixon, is roughly 15,000 folks, which does have significant broadband access. But our rural communities and some of our commercial and industrial developments in some of those rural areas in our ag land is in dire need of broadband access to some extent. So we're really excited to be on this program and happy to work with all you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I give you a lot of credit, Jeremy, for a late entry. You created a great team, and looking forward to the success to come. Massac County.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Cordy. I am kind of serving twofold. I'm a board member with the Metropolis Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also a real estate agent. So broadband is definitely something that I have clients that are looking for in home purchases, especially since COVID, with so many jobs going, they're working at home now instead of going to an office, and not having high-speed internet can definitely pose problems to them. I've just kind of been brought onto this within the last couple weeks, so trying to get up to speed. I have a team leader. We're kind of sharing the responsibility. Her name is Maggie Rajula. She is a vice president of City National Bank, which is our locally owned community bank here in Metropolis, which is the home of Superman. That's our claim to fame down here. We are right on the Ohio River, directly across from Paducah, Kentucky. But we have a really unique terrain in our county. We have, the south end of the county is all along the Ohio River, so we have flood zones. We have river bottom ground, which my family, we farm quite a bit here in Massac County, so agriculture is a big part of our county. So we have flat ground, good farm ground, but then we also have hills and trees and bluffs, and so we have a little bit of everything here that makes it very difficult in some areas to get decent. We can't even get decent cell service in some areas. Maggie and I both travel through a dead zone as we travel from our homes to get to our offices in Metropolis, where if we're on the phone, our call is going to get dropped. So as far as our team, I think we're up to 20 members on our team now. We have government officials. We have our Farm Bureau manager. We have a representative from Shawnee Community College, our hospital CEO, educators. We have 2 school districts in our county. Our population of our county is just under 14,000. So we're a very small county. Metropolis is the county seat. And I think our population in Metropolis is maybe around 5,000 now. And it seems like if people don't aren't farming, they work at one of the plants here or across the river in Kentucky. So.
Tiffany, thanks so much.
Yep.
It sounds like a great team, and I think people will be happy when they have the larger teams when it comes to, to divide the work and maybe some committees that can work on different critical tasks. It doesn't just fall on 1 or 2 people. You can really spread that work out, and having that variety of perspective and expertise, not just technical expertise, but community expertise is great. So thank you so much.
And Bill,
finally, Vermilion County.
Sorry, Bill, I just wanted to add something because Tiffany brought it up. 14,000, Tiffany, we've had a county in this program with 6,000 people. And we've had a bunch in that 15 to 20,000 range. So don't feel small is what I was going to tell you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good. Okay, William said his audio failed, so he's gonna chat about Vermilion County. So I'm sure he's busy typing away here. Or if anyone else from Vermilion can rescue him, that would be great too. We'll just let William type at his leisure, then we'll come back to everyone will be able to read that. And hopefully, William, sometimes if you just, I don't know if it's your computer or your Zoom connection, but it's best solution is to just log out, log back in again, and go from there. So, but we're from here on in, it's pretty much our talking heads from our side. So we're gonna you don't really need to be able to talk to us very much. So no sweat either way. Reed, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about the program, and some of you have probably heard this now at least once, maybe 2 or 3 times, but part of this orientation program is we want to equip you with the ability to sell this program in your own community, that you feel really confident about the task going forward. And then when we get to Nancy's portion on the survey, to get prepared for that survey launch, and we'll talk more about that as we go. I'm Bill Coleman, and I'm a contractor to the Benton Institute. I've had my own firm, Community Technology Advisors, for more than 20 years now. So from helping communities try and go from dial-up internet service to DSL to fiber over the years, and always with the idea of what are we going to use this technology for in our community? What value can we extract from the network by helping people make great use of it? And always think about that in your discussions with people. People say, well, why do I need better broadband? Whether they're a farmer or a senior citizen in their home, it's always about what value can we get from the network. And that helps to bring people around to the idea that this is really important, not just for themselves, but for the entire community. Next. So plain and simple, this is about pursuing and achieving the best possible broadband solution for your community. We've already heard about the diversity of the territory that you want to cover from Massac County, which has got the variety of landscapes, to others that might be more prototypical of the flat prairie corn and bean lands of central Illinois. As I mentioned, Reed and I were driving around Illinois quite a bit last week and saw some of that variety of terrain. And so every place is different. You have a variety of terrain, you have a variety of demographics, you have a variety of existing broadband providers, prospective broadband providers. If this was kind of a one size fit all, we could just create a plan for you and you could adopt it and pursue that. But what's really important part is for you to look at your own situation, decide, create your own broadband vision about what's good enough for your community, and be able to really pursue that solution either in a wide variety of arrangements of encouraging providers or financially supporting them or helping them in other ways. Actually, we've had communities want to own their own broadband networks. And so it's really up to you to decide what's the best approach for your community. Next. Know that this is your plan, so that we help guide you, but it's a self-help, the 4-month, 16-week program where you meet weekly and for 2 hours. And generally the first hour of each meeting is we'll be providing content to you. So we'll have experts both from within the Benton family, the extension family, but also outside experts who will share their time to help bring you up to speed on the different technologies and the different partnership models and so on. The other second hour is you having your own team meeting, and where you kind of plan and review the work and do the work. And so sometimes those committees will meet for the full hour. Sometimes they'll meet for less than that, depending on the demands of what's going on with the community. When we started this program, committees, everyone was in their own Zoom box because it was still mid-pandemic. And then the now we've had people meeting on site. And so the teams are meeting in one place, at a place with a decent, hopefully decent conference room where they can have us on the big screen and they can see everyone. And then we have some folks that are meeting hybrid, where it might be 20 or 30 minutes from where they live to the county seat, and they choose to work from their own office or work from their own home and participate that way. So you want to make sure that you're facilitating that participation. 2 hours is a lot to ask, but some people, if you have to add another hour of travel, that's just one more hindrance from them participating. And so the use of the Zoom, even in your own local meetings, is important. Next. Here's kind of our phases and really this leadership recruitment and education that goes on throughout the program. It's never too late to add additional people to your team. We like to have a great team to start, but adding folks on as they learn about your efforts, you decide they really need to be a part of it. That's all great. We do a lot of information gathering up front. The community survey that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but also broadband provider interviews are really an important part of the process, and looking at maps. The vision development, the consensus building, we spend a lot of time on this because this is really where the hard conversations happen in your community about, what is good enough for us and what is our path forward. And it's great for that team to have those discussions. And we have them not only early on, but really throughout the process as you learn more information and you can adjust that vision. Consensus building is also about communications to your community. And so we really encourage that active engagement with the rest of the community. So when you come up with your plan, there's not a big surprise there. People who are following along will understand the direction you're taking and why. Ultimately, this is about finding those opportunities for better broadband, and whether it's, again, supporting an existing provider, improve their service, recruiting a new provider into your community, building some publicly owned broadband infrastructure, either as a utility or to support the private sector development. These are all options that you have to decide what's right for your community. The reporting really comes, maybe this arrow should be extended a little bit back towards the beginning, because we like you to report out as part of that consensus building as you go along. But ultimately, the kind of the graduating ceremony from our program is you doing a presentation to your peer group in the other 5 counties in the cohort, in preparation for you reporting out to your own community, to the county board, to the various school boards, the chamber, the Rotary, really whoever will listen. We encourage that active reporting and team building. And then finally, project development, which is really about building broadband infrastructure. How does that happen in your community? Next. A little more detail about each of those. As I've mentioned already, bigger is better, variety of skills and knowledge. You don't need to have all your team members be tech experts. Connections to the community are really critical to this. Enlightened self-interest. When people talk about, oh, I'm on this because my broadband is terrible, that's great, because we know those people have real passion for better broadband. And in some folks, we see that they have a good team, but then they also have maybe a second ring of connections people they're just keeping informed about the program and may call on those folks for assistance, especially kind of in the survey distribution. We do the education we provide, the shared learning experience from within the cohort is important. We also have a lot of resource material. Each week you'll get a email from Reed and Nancy about some resources that are available if people want to jump in. It reminds me of the college days. We had the required reading and the suggested reading. Some folks love that suggested reading and want to dive in deeper. So we provide you plenty of information that you can come more and more knowledgeable about the program you're involved in. And then that active engagement and information gathering really is helpful just as you learn from your community members about their situation and the opportunities. Next. The information gathering, I mentioned the surveys, and Nancy's going to spend a lot of time on that. We do have specific questions around agriculture, around business, and so on. Some communities do these focus groups, one or more, looking at residences or get the business community together, the ag sector. Note that, and I see here, I missed my dates here on my calendar. We'll come back to that, but we'll be visiting your community about midway through the program. The provider interviews, reaching out to both existing and prospective providers to see who do you want to partner with. This is probably the most critical task, ultimately, to make projects happen. And then lots of mapping tools, and more broadband maps are essential to really understanding your situation and where funding is available. So if you don't have your GIS person from your county or your regional planning agency on your team, you should get to know them and bring them into the process. Next. Vision development. This is a time, and you're going to cook this vision throughout the process of looking at what we've learned, what might be possible, some of the trade-offs and the ramifications of your vision statement between having service everywhere and having it be affordable, for example. You know, reaching those last 20% of the people in your county will be the most expensive folks to reach. And so sometimes you have to say, do we want, or if you think about fiber optics versus wireless, fiber optics might take several years to build. A wireless network might take a year to build. So that speed of deployment versus long-term value, all these things require consideration. Next. The opportunities. One of the most important things on this piece is, are you prepared to be a good partner? As you think about recruiting broadband investment into your community, how do you do that? What are you prepared to do as a community? Is that just a cheerleader role? Are you prepared to provide funding? Can you smooth out any regulatory requirements so that things happen quickly? And then a big part of this effort is demonstrating that you have a marketplace for broadband, showing that there are customers out there who want to sign up for broadband. And I think a community survey is a big part of that as well. And then always understanding what's the plan B. The first plan doesn't go as planned, then what's your next step? And to think of that kind of in advance. The reporting, constant outreach to your community is really important to share your vision and strategy, identify community objections, utilizing public forums. We've had folks report to their county board every couple weeks to keep them informed about what's happening, having broadband focused meetings. We just were at one the other night, and we found the community was reporting about what was going on. And I think they recruited 3 or 4 more people to their team who were very interested in broadband and trying to get better service in their own local area. So those outreach, always try and be looking outside and not just inside at your whole team. presenting your findings and recommendations. And we've had communities do kind of resolutions of support. So they might end up with 20 different resolutions of support for their plan, which would include townships or county boards or city councils or farm bureau organizations, whoever you can get to say, yes, we believe in this and support it. That just helps the providers understand that you're serious. It helps the county board understand how important this is. And it helps the funders see this community has really done the work for a better broadband. And as we go into the funding programs later in the program, you'll learn that the state of Illinois, an 100-point grant program, provides 4 points for this community program. So by participating in this program, you're really boosting your project's priority at the state level because the community is supportive. And then just always, as always, recruiting additional champions. Next. And this is the way the projects happen: fast and slow, comprehensive or piecemeal, straight or meandering. For some communities, success happens pretty quickly. Other ones, they struggle and try and find their way. I mentioned our little town of Elsa. They had, that took about 2.5 years after we finished our program for them to get the funding for their project. Excuse me, but they hung in there and now they're going to have their success. So it's very exciting for us. Next.
Bill, sorry, I just want to interject again. That was a town of 200 households, and the committee was entirely residents who were just fed up with having no broadband. So it's such a great story about them really, as Bill said, finding a couple of providers, and then they went by the wayside, but it just the success, we're all so happy that they stuck with it. So talk about small, going back to that comment.
Thank you. Here's kind of our calendar. Every week we have one or more topics we cover in detail. You'll find that we do a little circling around when we'll have a Broadband 101 at our first meeting on March 6th. But then when we get to mid-April, then we're back in technology descriptions, a lot more detail about fiber optics and wireless technologies. But you can see each week we have a kind of a topic of the week. If you look at that April 22nd to 26th, we'll be doing our tour around Illinois. I have to say that when I looked at the map, we're going to cover the Northern Illinois, the Southern Illinois, Eastern Illinois. So we're going to really see the whole extent of the state. So it'll take some smart scheduling for us to get all 6 of our communities visited. We generally spend about 3 to 4 hours in your community, and we can do a variety of activities. Community meeting, we can just meet with your team. In a meeting, we could, some communities have kind of a community broadband summit. Really up to you as to plan those, how best to get people excited about broadband. Companies come into town and put on some kind of event that will attract folks to participate. Sometimes hear from existing telecom providers. We've had a wide variety of approaches, including farm tours and kind of presentations by school education, healthcare, about the uses of technology and how important it is. So everyone does it a little bit different, and we'll help you plan that as we go. But as we get through the program, more and more details about going from here's about technology to here's how we can actually do projects. And so the last 2 weeks, we'll see that in early June, local planning sessions. So Reed and I will spend time with each of your communities. Sometimes either 1 or 2 sessions up to 2 hours each, where it's really what have we learned and what are we going to do about that to help you create your plan And through this process, we're really taking you through a decision-making funnel where you're kind of creating your plan as you go. So ultimately, those last 2 weeks is about sharpening that plan, putting the details on that about what it is. But we're here to support you wherever you are in that decision-making, either to help you create that plan or just to help you review your plan. And we can be kind of devil's advocates and help you to sharpen your plan and answer questions. Then ultimately, June 19th, the community presentations. I know that's right now that's a holiday, Juneteenth. And so we're looking to see what maybe that we can delay that a day or two or go early to have those presentations so we miss that legal holiday in some, depending on your own what you want to do there. So, but those presentations are to each other. And those are very helpful in two ways. Sometimes people ask great questions about your plan. More likely they say, oh, can we steal that slide or two that you had? Because we love that, what you've done there. So a lot of great information sharing there. Next. So from here, we're going to go to Nancy. Dave, excuse me, any questions? We love questions. Aaron, do you have a question? Aaron Marshall?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. I love to pick on people, so you always have to, like that professor that, but I always try and pick out who I think are the best and the brightest to answer. So great. So if there aren't any questions, and one of the things I will say here now is that they, in this program, these first 2 months are very hectic. There's a ton of information coming at you, kind of the work that you do on the surveys and building your team and on the community vision and on the provider interviews. It's a lot. And so if people aren't, I always say, if you're not a little bit confused and dazed at 7 or 8 weeks in, you're not really thinking hard enough about this program. But know that the fog does clear, that the pace does become more manageable as we go through those final weeks. But a lot of information. It's really important to get early, have those conversations. And so just know that as we go through the process, that fog will clear and your team will gel and solutions will become more evident. Nancy, thank you for joining us. Nancy, as Adrienne said, has been a real supporter of community broadband planning throughout Illinois, both through supporting the work of Benton, starting with webinar facilitation, and then through these community surveys, which is really an important part of the program. And I'm just going to say that when the survey, there's several purposes for it. One is to convince your own elected officials how important broadband is. And with the pandemic, that need is kind of faded because people do see that more clearly now. But it's also to help convince broadband providers that they should invest in your community. So it's a very powerful tool there. And third, it's a great tool to share with in grant applications to build a convincing argument that projects in your community will be successful. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy and let her show you this process.
Thanks, Bill. Just want to really say I appreciate all of the partnership so far in Illinois. Love the cohort that we have here today. The participation from the different regions of Illinois is very encouraging. And of course, Illinois Extension is honored to be a part of the program and the process. We have driven county surveys for quite some time. With the Broadband Breakthrough Program, we've driven these county surveys throughout the program and kind of fine-tuned this instrument. When you think of surveys, you kind of think that you might think of it as a dry process. So data collection and analysis, and then that's it. But really, it's quite the engagement tool. I think that you'll see that it kind of interweaves with a lot of other aspects of the planning process within your broadband planning. And so it is what I see as quite a social endeavor. And we have a breakout of households, businesses, farms, farm ag entities, and then community and public buildings. And if we look at that early on when we're surveying, are we getting a good amount of input from the different types of respondents there? If we don't have any farmers that are taking the survey, landowners, out in our rural counties, that sort of sets off a flag there, because you really want to start to have conversations earlier. And the survey gives people the airtime to give their information and answer questions about how satisfied they are with the state of broadband in their county. Even at the end of the survey, you'll see there's a comment section where they can elaborate, and that's going to be very key for your planning. And to be heard early on in the process, instead of a week before someone's knocking on your door asking for rights to build out on the easements of your property, and you say, well, I had no idea. Instead, maybe people are in the know about what's going on. The survey is one really good way of doing this. And so without further ado, just wanted to kind of give that primer there to let you know that really it is something that is going to support your efforts, and hopefully you'll have a little fun too in doing this. Here's my contact information, Nancy Essery Woodrowgo. I'm on campus, but I travel quite a bit, as an extension agent should, and happy to be working with your local extension folks in your county as well, if to the extent possible. I'm going to quickly go over in a little bit of a shorter manner what it consists of, the survey process, what it consists of. Not as long-winded as I'll be for the second week, where we'll go over this again and actually get your surveys ready to launch. And so, but this process involves some communications and networking. You'll see that it also helps you kind of build out your team a little bit more, because you'll be thinking about it in a different way of, gosh, if I want to really get everybody to sound in on this survey, the folks who are not receiving any sort of access to the infrastructure at all, there's no infrastructure, and some really important assets in our county that we could enhance with broadband infrastructure, that allows you to kind of rethink, okay, what should our team really be comprised of? You might add a few more team members when thinking about that survey distribution. And the process of sampling and how we look at the coverage going through the weeks that we're doing the surveying, and then a little bit about the analysis and timeline. The bulk of today, I will actually just be showing the survey so you know what we're collecting. You can ask questions. I think that's an important part of this presentation, is to show you the actual survey. And so I usually tell folks, hey, when you're thinking about the communications and networking, why not use this little table where you're going to kind of write down some organizations, their contact information, and who's going to talk to them, who on your team is going to reach out to them. Dividing up that work is going to be real important. You're going to want to think about those who are going to act on the results of the survey and make sure they're included. media professionals, and even some service and social organizations that will need to be a part of the efforts, whether it is making sure that they're getting folks to fill it out, and that they're filling it out, and all the anchor institutions in your county are filling it out, but also maybe providing some volunteers to get to those hard to reach places, and perhaps even entering in some information on surveys for folks who don't have any access at all, maybe over the phone, giving people the survey over the phone, or collecting paper copies and entering those in. And so again, you're going to want to do this as a form of stakeholder identification, and identify those partners in distribution. And I'll talk about the partners a little bit more when we talk about the design. And so so what I wanted to mention was, a lot of people think, well, we want this survey to really reflect who is all kind of working together. And so at the top, we're going to have all of our logos of all of the organizations involved, but you know that that's going to very quickly kind of leave somebody out. And so you might want to think about an actual new kind of logo. And I'll give you some examples of what we've already got lined up with other counties, but a new logo that says, Broadband Project, Clark County Broadband Project, or they haven't actually participated, but just pulling out a name that could exist, right? Connect Champaign County, right? These different names, and then they have a logo, and then everyone says you're a part of this group, so this is everyone's logo. That could actually be a great way to kind of bring partners in, and it's always important to kind of cater to partners and make sure people really do feel a part of the effort. And so that's one way to do that. And you're going to think about the main thing with these surveys. We've really fine-tuned the surveys to the extent that you won't need to really change anything. You'll see that it's pretty fine-tuned. Like Adrian had mentioned, we've done this in about 55 counties. So we've had a lot of feedback, and exactly what needs to be on this survey. That being said, we are open to suggestions. If you have a suggestion, you shouldn't shy away from that. But the design changes that you'll be really taking care of is that introductory survey text. And I have a template that you can use to guide you through all of this sort of launch for your survey. And then in terms of the design, I guess let's just take a look at what that is real quick. I think that's what you're going to want to really know. And so here is, and hopefully you can see my browser here. This is a form text of what your introduction could include. What's the problem in your county? What are the benefits of high-speed broadband? You want to let people know what are the stakes, how this is going to impact precision ag, e-commerce, telehealth, education, distance education, remote work, how that is going to impact your county. You're going to want to let them know a little bit about that, a few sentences about what the issue is in your county and what it sort of what could be, and how important it is that they give the proper information. You're wanting to gauge infrastructure demand, a demand for infrastructure. You will be asked your address. There is a little bit of a privacy language that will be in the survey to assure people that all of this stuff just doesn't get published out there or something. And then you'll explain just some information. When's the survey? How long is the survey open for? And who is your main contact if someone has a question about the survey? And then they go into answering the questions. Are you a home, business, farm, or a community public building? We have other as well. Very rarely that gets used, and then of course they can write it in. If they select public building, and I'm going to select these so you can kind of see what pops up. But and we let people select more than one, because of course you have people that have home businesses, right? And you've got maybe someone who has a farm, but they also have an ag business or enterprise there. And so we let folks select more than one. What's the address that you're reporting for this? And so, you know, I say that very deliberately, because if you're a business owner and you've got like a brick and mortar business somewhere else, you want to take 2 surveys, one for your home and one for your business. Or you've got, you know, a farm property and maybe an ag enterprise or something, but you got the home over here and they've got 2 separate addresses, take 2 surveys. And so you're going to put the reported address here. Great to have an email address. We can follow up with additional information if needed. And then they get to opt out. Can we share your address or email with broadband providers? This will help build a stronger case for broadband in our community and attract internet service providers. We will not share your information without permission. And then they can opt in. So that's a really nice way for them to opt in. Otherwise, they can say, hey, I'm giving you my address information, but use it for just the survey, not to include in conversations with providers. And so you kind of have to respect that a little bit. But we can talk about other ways that you can give providers an impression of what your demand is and the number of folks that are needing that infrastructure. Okay, if they do select a public or community building, this pops up. We want to know, what is the facility? Is it a hospital, school, library? We'd like to know. The role, if they select farm, we've got these ag-oriented questions, and this is a real nice part of our survey that we get to collect more information on. Is your farm, you know, what's the role with your farm? You know, are you a tenant, or do you lease the farm? Do you operate? We want to know this information, and we ask then the big question about what the existing internet access situation is. And so if they've got fixed internet as well as cellular, they'll select these 2. If they don't have anything, they'll select I don't have anything. And maybe, you know, a lot of folks don't have home internet, but they do have a phone and they rely on that phone for connectivity. And so they'll just select the second one. I'm going to select all 3 just so you can see the questions that pop up when those are selected. We ask about devices. We were listening to a technology expert yesterday with the other cohort talking about how people easily have 15 devices at their location. When you got multiple family members and someone has a phone and a tablet and a laptop, or you've got your garage door opener, etc., it really does add up. But we like to collect those numbers as well and kind of be able to say, we want you to be able to say, this is around the number of devices that are really needing to be supported at these different locations. And you can divide, you know, look at that by the public buildings or whatever you need to see. And if you have fixed connectivity with your ag entity, we want to know how your overall connectivity is, and then the business functions of your ag entity or your business. How is the accounting, marketing, and purchasing going in terms of that connectivity? What about the precision ag types of activities you have going on in terms of equipment monitoring or data gathering, etc. And they can select how that's going. And family life for school and home and telehealth and whatnot, how's that going? We ask about how that connectivity supports these needs, whether it is that you have fixed internet or you're just using like a cellular connection or a hotspot. And we also want to know how this is covering your entire farm or area for business operations. That's voice and data. And then another precision ag technology question. Do you use it all? If not, no, not applicable. Current use, or you plan to use in the future. And then, you know, we've got the different types of sort of precision ag tech down here, going down this. So this is a matrix question, and they've got to select sort of the situation with each. I intend to use field sensors in the future. I already do auto guidance, you know, that type of thing. We get all of that information from this question. And finally, we ask farms if they are interested in hosting wireless equipment on their property, and they can say yes or no. If they do say yes, we want to know what is the approximate height in feet of that tallest structure on that property. And you'll get a nice presentation from our ISU experts talking about how vertical assets can play a role in increasing connectivity with farms and ag. And, you know, I'm not going to speak too much for that, but it's a very impressive type of research and intervention that is being discussed with our ISU professionals in terms of vertical assets. We ask about the primary internet provider. This question shows up if you say you have access to a fixed internet connection. And so if you have a router, right? That's what we mean by fixed. And they will select, this will populate with providers that are specific to your county. We have provider lists. And so this question will look different for every county. It'll be the providers that are currently operating in your county. And then folks will select from that. And they can select other if there is something we missed, which could be the case because I think that information comes out quarterly or something, or biannually or something. So we might, if there's somebody new in the area, we might have missed them, and so they can write it in. We want to know the reliability. If you've got, you know, if your fixed internet connection is not reliable, you know, if it's cutting out every day, you know, how often does that happen? How often do you have to resort to your cell phone when your primary internet connection is not working? We hope folks can answer to the best of their knowledge what speed they've been promised by their internet provider. And so it would go to the megabits per second all the way to the gigs per second. And hopefully they know that and they can say they don't, but some folks do, and they'll select what they've been promised. And we ask that question for download speed and upload speed. We understand that not everybody knows what their current subscription is, but we think it's important to try to get that information. And maybe they can check it out and see. Then this really important satisfaction question around affordability, speed, and reliability. Let's see if I can make this bigger. We want to know from extremely dissatisfied to extremely satisfied how they feel about their primary internet service in terms of affordability, speed, and reliability. And now we've got these speed tests that they can take. Now this is where they would follow the instructions, they would select the speed test, and when they push start, they've got to take the numbers here. Now, don't get jealous of me. I'm on campus here, so don't get jealous of my results here. I can get jealous of it, I guess. I don't know, because this is not really what it's looking like for me at home. But I've got, you know, a download and upload speed here. And they take these numbers and they go back and they enter them in. What's my download speed? What's my upload speed? And what is the latency? You see, we have latency here. We call it ping or latency. And that's what this number is right here. It says latency. And we offer the same thing for cellular connection. And this is because we've got rural counties, especially, those southern counties, that there might be places where there's no internet, there's no, infrastructure for broadband, and there's no cell service. And so it's a way to sort of address that issue of counties needing to know where there's just nothing at all. And that people are talking about both these types of ways that they connect to the internet, and then we look at the speeds as well. And the reason behind this also is because a lot of farmers really think that it's important to kind of gauge that, and so that also is collected in the survey. And there are ways that we differentiate between those speed tests, not just in what's being reported here, but how they answer the other questions. And then we start to get an idea. And you'll get those results and it'll explain like a percentage of folks who have speeds that are considered by the FCC as unserved, or speeds that are considered by the FCC as underserved. And that's great to know that information in terms of a percentage of your county. It's not a percentage of your county, though. It's a percentage of the respondents to the survey. And so you really want to speak about the survey results in terms of sentiment and how your county has really sounded into the survey. And when we get all the results on a map, you do start to see patterns. So it's not a coincidence if everyone has poor speeds on the survey in this section of the county, right? And so you can really see that sort of level of service reflected in the survey. And it tends to reflect what we've already got in other places in terms of data.
Nancy? I just wanted to jump in here, and people who are really paying attention will see there's two different speed test addresses that we're using. And the reason for that is right now, as the state of Illinois is trying to decide how their grant dollars are going to go, they have to use the federal maps about what areas are eligible. And so a part of that process, kind of complicated, is that there's a challenge process, that there's providers give the information that says an area is served. The community may not agree with that. And so this is a way to get areas that the maps improve. They call it the challenge process, the BEAD challenge process. And so the federal government has set up a specific speed test to work into that challenge process, but they don't want any cellular data as a part of that. And so we use the BEAD challenge.org as for the speed test for your landline, essentially your landline or your fixed wireless, your non-cellular, and then you use speedtest.net for the other.
Correct. Yeah, I appreciate that differentiation. And the county governments or local governments or nonprofits across the state are currently trying to address how to sort of batch information using the BEAD challenge site to rectify any information that's currently there in terms of internet service levels. And so that challenge really is so that the state and federal levels, those maps that are used to determine eligibility, that information is correct. And so one way that it's being talked about is let's all get the map right. And so if you've got folks in your county that are looking at those maps and Shubika will be on week 3 to talk about that as well. If you see information about your broadband infrastructure that you just know to not be true, you get to challenge it, and this is the time to do so, and you do so through this website. And so there will be some conversation, and we will be complementing those efforts throughout the cohort, the process. There will be a little bit of conversation around that to make sure we're complementing those efforts. And then this is if they do select that they don't have any sort of connectivity, this question comes up. Tell us why. Why don't you have access to the internet at your home? Actually, this question comes up if they do not select fixed. So they could say they have cell, or they could say they don't have anything at all, and this question will come up. And then they will tell us why. I don't need it, I don't want it. The infrastructure is not offered at my location. The price is too high. The speeds are too low. Service reliability, and then there's other. You know, sometimes when people don't have access to the internet, there's a reason behind that, and we think there's something to knowing what that reason is, and we've tried our best to categorize it here, and you can use that information as well to kind of address what's going on, to whether it be the lack of access or the reticence to connect. And we have a question about what monthly price would you be willing to pay for really great internet, right? Really like high-speed internet. And then they can select that. That can also kind of be used in conversations. We ask about members of the household and what they're currently doing with their internet connectivity. Again, current or hope to in the future. Accessing government information, using it for communications and email. We've got someone using it for education, workforce training, family entertainment, healthcare information, operating a home business, smart devices, surveillance and security, remote working, telecommuting, online banking and shopping, etc. All of those different types of ways that we participate in the digital economy, the digital society. That's all great information to gather also with your county. And asking if the person feels they have a sufficient amount of choices at this location that they're reporting. And so they can say yes or no. And then our wonderful question around broadband story. Tell us your broadband story. And people really do elaborate with this. Some really provocative stories come out of this that can really be used for like a narrative and a proposal, or you know, that can be used to further understand to what extent the need is really there. And you know, we've seen all kinds of stories. Someone saying, I was, you know, interviewing for a job for a remote work position. My internet had me, you know, dropped my call. Obviously, I didn't get the job because if I can't sustain a job interview online, how am I going to, you know, sustain my remote work online? That was a, you know, that really is I think a great example of a broadband story that someone might have. Okay, so that's the gist of the online survey. I have a few more slides here. I'm going to try to zip through those so I can get to questions. And I believe you can see my screen. So we've got our populations here. we have Boone at 53,000 and Vermilion at 73,000, and then we have 4 rural counties. Lee as well is kind of in, hovering in the middle there. But what I want to note here is a few things. I want to first, in looking at the population, I saw what the breakdown was of Hispanic population, and I saw that we've got Boone at 25%, Vermilion at 7%, and the others are pretty low, less than 5%, I think even less than 3%. So I wanted to let everyone know they have the ability to utilize a Spanish version online survey. And basically what that is if someone clicks on the survey, it looks just like what I showed you, but there's a button that you can select English or Spanish. And so the Spanish speaker would select Spanish, and then the survey would be given to them in Spanish. And so that is available. And I am suspecting Boone County wants to take advantage of that. I'm suspecting that Vermilion County wants to, even if that percentage is lower, it's probably all concentrated in that one metropolitan area that they would probably very much appreciate to have the Spanish language version. At such a high population, even a low percentage is quite a few people anyway. So, but why I give this information on this slide is to let everyone know that in terms of statistical validity, if you do a random sample, you can say that you have a statistically valid set of results for your survey. And that really means that if you take the sample, the corresponding sample size to your population, that's like the number of stamps. That's the number of mail outs of the flyer, for example, that you would do to households, a mix of households, businesses, whatever. And we can help with that. If you have an organization that has like a list of households, for example, or a list of businesses, etc., we can generate a random sample and help you know give you your sample list. The thing is that this is a little bit of a barrier for most folks because it is quite expensive. And we really haven't had any counties so far go the route of random sampling. There are other ways to have a statistically valid survey, and that's by collecting demographic information. Asking folks, what is your gender? What is your age? And if the breakdown of your survey respondents is similar to what the census says, then you can say it's comparable, and that in that sense, it's statistically valid as well. Otherwise, we do convenient sampling in the beginning. I had spoken a little bit about the networking and communications and the marketing of your survey that needs to happen. And that's all convenient sampling. Those who see the information first, they'll respond to the survey. It's most convenient for them. You'll see a lot of them have access to fixed internet because they saw it first, right? And so they're going to take the survey and talk about to the extent that they have an issue with their current infrastructure access. But then a few weeks into the surveying, we look at coverage, and then we start to see, okay, do we need more farms? Do we need more businesses? Is there a part of the county that's really quiet that hasn't really answered the survey? Is there a town that there's just nobody that has answered the survey? You can start to target, and that's cluster sampling. And so you'll start to target where you need to do additional sort of canvassing or reaching out to folks to try to get that survey distributed. And so the fact that it's not just a blast out convenient sample and we're done, the fact that we continue to calibrate and look at coverage a few times during the duration of your survey does lend a stronger case to the fact that you really are making efforts to get the most, I don't want to use the word accurate, but I would say a pretty darn good feel of what the county situation is for broadband infrastructure. And like I said, when a lot of that is reflected on a map, Shabika produces these great maps with the survey results. When a lot of that is reflected on the map, you see trends, and it's a wonderful thing to have the survey done to say you've done the proper level of engagement and investigation and information gathering for your broadband infrastructure deployment plan and proposals. And so I give you a few slides on distribution, ideas on what you're going to want to do for distribution. I give you some wording for messaging, how you need to speak to people about the speed test. If you need to be connected to your fixed internet when you're taking, if you have fixed internet, please make sure you're connected to it and not your phone or something. When you're taking the speed test, when you're taking the survey, that particular message will be important. And we continue to talk about how that messaging needs to kind of be out there first and foremost. The flyer, go home, connect to your fixed internet, take the survey, that kind of thing. And we'll provide you short URLs that are easy for folks to type in, so they're not these long jumbled URLs. So that it will be key for flyers. I think a lot of counties have found it really useful to put those flyers in backpacks at schools so that they're taking it home to their households, and then somebody in their household will take the survey. And you've got that messaging right there saying, connect to your fixed internet, take the survey, and also why is this important in our efforts, etc. So and then just a little bit more, I know you're not supposed to put all these words on one slide, but this is more of just a place where you can pull some language about the benefits of broadband, education, telehealth, quality of life, economic impact, agriculture, etc. So I just put that all there for you to just copy paste into wording if you need it. Little example of what a flyer might look like. You don't have to do this way. Maybe you don't, but it's just this is my sort of attempt at what a flyer could look like. You can take some of this and know that all these little points are good to have on there. Have the contact information on there, the messaging, the URL, the start and end dates, and a little bit of information about your county efforts. I provide you a timeline. These are kind of your little dates that you kind of want to make sure you're doing things. You've got a plan, you've got a distribution list, you've got marketing efforts. You're going to remind, when are you going to remind folks? When are you going to get your coverage? All of that will be communicated to you throughout the program. And so it's nice to think about timeline. You might want to go through your calendar, your personal or work calendar, and think, okay, we're going to be doing these things, and maybe write some notes on surveying just to kind of plan for needing to leave a little time in some of the parts of the duration of the program for some of these things. When we already took the base survey, I will give this presentation again on week 2, and I have got this nice little worksheet right here that you'll take into your breakout rooms when we meet again in a few weeks, and you'll go through it. It'll just help you kind of get everything done and think of the execution of the survey. You will find that this is quite easy. The survey's pretty much ready for you. I just need your introductory wording and the contact information of the individual who would be like the main contact for your survey, and perhaps that logo. Let me just quickly go back to the online surveys. I just want to show you what these logos look like, and then I'll pass it back to Bill. And we could even take some questions while I'm getting those. So I can show you what some of these other folks' surveys look like. The other counties.
A question, Nancy, about how do you encourage folks without internet who can't get internet to take a survey that you know, they don't, and so the digitally excluded, how do you include them? And I mentioned in the chat a little bit about the paper surveys, I think is a great way to go. For folks that we talked about the Hispanic population, and I'll make some assumptions, maybe they work in agri-processing. You know, if you could get that plant to provide paper surveys to the workers, that would be another way to get that.
Yes.
Bring the paper surveys to the senior center or the library. I think you can be pretty intentional about reaching some of those audiences. I think through the schools, you know, the paper copies, and or at least people are able to learn about the survey through a handout in a backpack or postcards or so on that are great for marketing that.
Yeah. And so here's a logo, by the way, if you want to look at your screen. We've got, you know, Southern County in the southwest part of the state. They made a logo just for these efforts. And I think most of the counties have made their own logo to sort of just envelope all or umbrella all of the different participating organizations in their county. So wanted to just show that. So yes, Bill, that is what one of our counties did. Actually, they took paper copies to like a meat processing plant, and that ended up being really interesting and good for them to do. I think in that particular case, there were different languages being spoken by folks there. And so it wasn't necessarily Spanish, but they were able to do the paper copies there. And I think there was one other county that did do some getting people calling in saying, you know, I heard on the news, or I heard on the radio, or I read in the paper that I can call this number and you'll, you know, call me back, or we'll schedule a time and you'll give me the survey over the phone. And so it's one of the volunteers in the group. Maybe there's a few high school volunteers, or you know, different types of volunteers. Maybe it's you know, there's an organization that says, you know, I think we're going to want to take this on. We really would like to be the ones receiving those phone calls and helping people take the survey and administering that survey over the phone. And so they'd open up just the online survey and just be keying it in for the person who does not have access. And of course, it's a lot shorter. So the paper copy is quite a bit shorter than the online, because you're not asking questions about, they're not taking the speed test, for example. And if they don't have the internet access, they're not going to talk about how great that internet access is or not great that internet access is for business functions or whatever. So it's a bit shorter. So any other questions? So I think some counties, in the beginning, they think it's a little bit overwhelming. But then once it's rolling, they get really excited because it actually becomes quite an enthusiastic type of situation where people are really ready to fill out that survey. And, you know, you got some counties that the local paper still has a great readership, and people see that and they log right on. You know, they see the short URL and they log right on and they take it, or they call a number and they take it. And so
yeah,
Nancy, right now we see a lot of good. Yeah, I see great efforts across the board in our current cohort. So no one's having a hard time of it.
Yeah, we rarely have people who get less than 400 responses, and I think our record is 1,500 or something. So,
yeah.
And then Nancy's there throughout the process to really support you with any questions and keep you on track, and so helpful to the communities to implement and understand the results. It's one thing to do a survey, but to understand the results and what they might mean. Nancy's been through, as Adrienne said, about 50 different, well, probably in Illinois, I forget, you know, probably about 30 counties in Illinois, I think, that you've done these surveys for. And So you know that survey inside and out and can see the variations and what that might mean for communities.
Yes, and I'm happy to be doing this. And of course, we've got some local extension folks that may want to be a part of the survey efforts too. We can always check and see. I can do my best to try to broker a conversation. There's just different levels of capacity across the state. So would be happy to see also if we can do some support from my side of things, and also locally would be great. And really thank you for your time. I'm going to put my email in the chat if anyone has questions about email. Otherwise, consider your surveys pretty much ready. And so really we'll just put a bow on it in week 2 of the program. So I look forward to seeing you all second week of March for that, and next week,
Thanks,
of course.
Nancy.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, our goal really is to launch the surveys certainly by the April 1st or before. And so the key thing is to have the survey closed a couple weeks before the community planning sessions. So Nancy and her team can get their survey results, the reports to you, and the mapping done. And so you'll have that in your hands when you go to create your broadband plans. And again, those tell us your broadband story. That is some of the most powerful language we've heard about the importance of broadband, both in a positive way where people have good broadband, they take it and they say, this is great. I work from home, I make extra money, my kids are going to school, getting college degrees or trade school or whatever it is they're studying, just all the things that empower folks. And then the flip side, the difficulties of not having connectivity. Reed, do you want to put up our slides again? Just a couple more slides. And I've mentioned these throughout the day today, but the key success factor, that team, that's really important. You know, if you're sitting there and you have 7.5 people, some people say, yeah, I can only be there a little bit. You know, I think it's great to have a full team, and we understand that life intervenes, you know, and so not everyone will be able to make every meeting. But if you start with 8 people and suddenly 3 people can't make it on a given week, then you're looking around the table, it gets a little light. And so if you have a bigger team, that helps to carry on that momentum at the times. You know, here as we do this, we'll be going through spring planting season. We'll be going through high school graduations and proms and all those things that take up people's time. So again, having a bigger team is always better. This is a very action-oriented program. We don't ever want to get paralyzed with too much analysis or trying to be perfect in the way we get things done. Charge ahead, you know, it's a very forgiving process. If you launch a survey and you realize, oh, we forgot this population or that part of the county, it's never too late then to add on activities that make things happen and so on. Lots of listening. I encourage you to really hear what people are saying about broadband shortcomings or what they think about community involvement in solving your broadband problem. You want to make sure you have that consensus. Be flexible, adjust as you learn, and then know that this might take persistence a while to solve. And you may have some initial successes on the easiest parts of your community to serve. Some of those more challenging areas might take a little while. However, know that this $1 billion coming to Illinois over the next year will be distributed probably by the end of 2024. And so if you think about that, here's the money, here's your chance to help pick your broadband provider partner, figure out the best possible coverage for your community with the best possible technology. Know that the community involvement and community support of a project is really an important criteria for the granting process. And so you want to be in a position where you're helping to pick your partner, deciding which application or applications to support to the state, and make sure that you end up with a provider partner and the technology that you think you deserve, rather than just kind of having a unnamed provider come to your county board meeting and hand them a letter of support and say, hey, sign this so we can include it in our grant application, which is going in tomorrow. And we've seen that multiple times from providers. You want to put yourself at the center of that decision-making process, not way off to the side. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. Always recruit, and unfortunately, this is almost like an Amway deal, right? You always need fresh meat into the process there to continue your efforts to spread the word. Nancy put a link in the chat, and then there's also, we'll send it to you again as we go. You already have it. The link for to register for the weekly meetings. That will help people put this every week on their calendar. Then it's also the email list that we create for when we need to get in touch with you. We try and minimize the number of emails that we send to you. We usually send one to you sometime shortly after our meeting as a follow-up with resource material, to-do items. And then we also send one prior to the meeting that just reinforces some reminders and so on. You can start writing that survey cover letter, maybe creating a logo or gathering logos. And if you have 2 or 3 organizations that are really spearheading your effort here, that you want to recognize them, that they bring credibility to your community team on the survey, a school district, the county government, Chamber of Commerce, or some economic development group, it's fine to have those community logos on there. Once you get too many, it gets to be kind of bulky, but if there are true folks that are leading this, it's fine to recognize them as well. And just start to let people know, the school, senior club, whoever you have for distribution channels. And don't forget, folks like churches are great supporters of these kind of programs. We know delivery of religious services has certainly changed since the pandemic, and what was once kind of impossible of online church services is now a significant part of a church strategy for reaching out to folks. So those are the things you kind of think about over the next 2 weeks. And next. We've got about 15 minutes. Field any questions or discussions. Hopefully you're feeling pretty well prepared now to leap into this program and be successful. And that was the goal for today, to help you as the leadership team to really be able to sell this program and so on. We love questions. We love conversation. How's our team in Lawrence County feeling? So before they talk, there's a question from William Donahue in Vermilion about vertical assets. And, wind farms, you think, oh man, those are big, tall structures, but they also have blades spinning past the pole every 2 seconds or so on. So wind towers are generally not a part of the process, except for the fact that all those wind towers are generally connected with telecommunications to monitor what's going on with the tower. So they can be a driver for some rural connectivity, but they're not really a vertical asset for broadband service. But ag structures certainly are. And so that's one of the reasons we asked that in the survey process about if farmers are willing to utilize offer their grain legs and other tall structures for telecom infrastructure, because they can certainly, wireless providers certainly like to be on big, tall towers. Sometimes those aren't present. A lot of times they're too expensive for the smaller internet service providers to be on. And so being on a grain leg is another great alternative. And so ultimately at this, we gather a lot of information about vertical real estate. Our folks at Illinois State University are present doing that through a mechanical mapping process where they're looking at what they call LiDAR, which is a GEOMAP that shows tall structures. They eliminate trees, they identify towers of all kind. And then the survey where we're asking farmers about their willingness to host. At the end of the day, you might find 50, 60 farmers in your county that are willing to do that. And if you place those on maps, which we do from the survey, and show that to a internet service provider, a fixed wireless provider, that's a ready-made map for engineering. And then it's also a ready-made contact list because, again, we can share that information with that ISP and say, well, here's, contact these farmers and talk about the arrangements of getting on their property, which is can really shorten the process and the expense of developing that kind of network.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
Orange County, as I understand it, I'm quite a little bit overwhelmed, but as I understand, the survey and all of the information on it are going to come from you, right? And we're to provide the cover letter, our logo on it. We're to provide where it goes.
Yes.
What about the speed test? Is it included on the survey?
The speed test, there's a link to the federal speed test, which is really essential to the challenge process about grant area eligibility.
Yeah.
And so we use that. And one of the things about the federal government, they always like to make things more complicated, of course. And so, and we'll talk more about this challenge process because that's kind of a whole rabbit hole of a whole nother thing that we don't want you to get too sidetracked on that, but it is important. And especially if you look at your map and saying, this is all wrong, in our county. And we've seen that in some places. But the federal speed test, somebody has to do that speed test 3 times for it to count.
Yeah.
And so once we have those surveys done, we're able to identify those people who are speed tests show that they're underserved or unserved. We're going to be able to send them an email. We're still working on this to say, okay, go back and do 2 more speed tests because your areas would be considered unserved or underserved, and tell people to do that. So that'd be a great communication tool for this whole challenge process. And then there's also a second speed test if somebody wants to do for their cellular data, they can do that. And that's a different address because the feds don't care about the cellular speed tests as a part of this challenge process.
So as we leave here today, what's the top 3 things we should be concentrating on?
You should continue to build your team.
Okay.
Try and get a dozen or 15 people would be my goal for your team from around your county, from around your different social circles, organization,
Got that.
and so on. Write up a little letter, and you'll get these slides here later today that both Reed and I and Nancy used. Grab some of that language and say, here's who we are. Here's why you need to take this survey. And thank you very much on the survey piece. Write that kind of cover letter.
Yeah.
And then 2 other things is one is sign up for information. And so if you go to benton.org, and maybe Reed can put this link in the chat, Benton has a daily newsletter that comes out that's all about broadband all across the country. And
I think I already signed up.
Yeah, some of that's pretty wonky, so you can kind of slide by that, but there's a lot of great information in there that is really relevant to your community. And then the second thing I would sign up for, and this is written by a guy who you'll hear from later in the program, a guy named Doug Dawson. And he has a blog that he writes every day. It's funny name. It's called Pots and Pans by CCG. And so the Pots is plain old telephone service, and Pans is pretty amazing new stuff. And he's writes a great article that everyone in this room could really understand. He's not a big technical writer. He's never going to be writing things that you probably don't understand, but he's the most cogent community broadband advocate in the country, I would say, based on his experience and actually in the field helping to build broadband networks.
What was it again? Pots and Pans?
Pots and Pans by CCG. And you can see it in the Rita's placed those two addresses in the chat.
So we'll get to.
All right,
And
thank
then-
you, sir.
And you also want us to work on our distribution.
Yes,
Yes.
and your distribution channels. Yep. Let people know that this survey is coming.
Okay.
I see a question from Justin about the bead challenge. And so even if we do start that the open challenge phase will open February 27th, and that's a big mechanical kind of activity that the state is going to be administering. Nancy, maybe you could put in, and we'll do this,
Yep,
and
and-
you don't have to worry about the chat. We'll capture
Yeah.
all this in our follow-up email. The
Yes.
state has done multiple webinars about this whole challenge process. And I think there's probably
Yep.
the last one might be the best one. You don't have to go to them all.
The last two are really great. The last one included a demo, so that'll be good. And then the one they did before, which was on February 7th, spoke about two counties came on to speak about how they did their efforts and explained what they did to properly do the bead challenge efforts. And those were kind of, a little bit rubber stamped by the broadband office. And of course, the broadband office had them on to do that. So I can put both links to those webinars and also how to sign up, because there will be more next week and the following weeks, just talking about that process and how to do that and answering questions you might have. So
Good.
Yep.
And Hillary, the Office of Broadband is on the call today. Hillary Rains has been a great community broadband supporter. And if you there's a generic email address to the Office of Broadband, broadband@illinois.gov. If you call in there and say, we're looking for help on the challenge process, they have staff there ready to help. I try and stay out of their way. I don't mess it up, because it is kind of a technical process. And so I want to make sure you get the best information, and both Hillary and then Shavika, who's going to help with the maps later, are both great resources for that. Good. This is I appreciate your candor there in Lawrence about being it is a lot of fire hose here the next few weeks, but know that we're always available to answer questions. We're used to working with citizen teams that are trying to overcome the same challenges that you have. And so you'll find over the next, by the time we come to visit in April, you guys are going to be experts and very comfortable explaining a lot of these things to others and doing so in a very accurate fashion. So it's fun for us to see that growth of knowledge and expertise in the communities. And I can guarantee you that will definitely, but it's a steep climb right now. But don't worry about it. Then most of the details aren't that important. It's, just know that you're working on this and that we're going to lead you down a path that's going to be pretty effective for your community. And the details will come later. We just had a presentation yesterday on fixed wireless networks, and nice engineering geeky guy did the presentation. And I'm sure a lot of that went over people's heads, but I bet they got the basic knowledge that's really important to them. You don't need to care about which spectrum, which frequency your internet comes in on. You just need to know it works. And that's what we're all about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If you want to reach out to either Reed or myself after this meeting and say, man, I need to talk to you, I'm totally confused, feel free to do that. We're here to support you. And, one of the dangers now about all these meetings being recorded is I listened back, I said, oh man, I said that, so I part of your confusion may be caused by me. So, and I'd admit to that. And, but there's plenty of time to get this right. And the team, that's what I'm going to tell you right now. It's great to have friends on this kind of project. You'll find amazing resources in your community you did not know were there.
Yeah, Bill, can I just join in here for a second? First of all, Bill does do a lot of harping about that, as he should, because we've seen small teams really struggle. But I did want to mention that sometimes a great ally to bring onto your team are your emergency services people. So your 911 folks, they're really out there. They understand the networks. Sometimes they all have towers and infrastructure that people can piggyback on. They're usually GIS people. So that's a good place to turn to if you have somebody in your community who does that, and they can be brought in. And then there was another question, Bill, I wanted to make sure that people asked or answered in the chat. One was, I think it was from Justin, and if I'm wrong, you'll excuse me, but it was about, how are you reaching, if you really want to get unserved people, how are you reaching them if you're distributing the survey on the internet? And Bill answered that partly by saying, we'll give you paper copies, and there are a whole lot of strategies which we'll talk about, whether it's a table set up in the grocery store or the local restaurant, or going to your library, or having it go home in the school the kids' school backpacks. There are just a lot of ways to reach those people who don't have the internet. Yeah, go ahead.
Adrian, you must have been multitasking.
I must have been multitasking, but
we did cover that in some detail.
Right.
Which is Katya.
Yeah,
so
you did.
And I don't blame her, because she's heard me about 50 times. So but we're there. I think that is an important consideration as you think about digital equity and opportunity, and the folks who are not the usual customers, trying to bring them into the marketplace, because we know the one thing that rural communities lack are customers, density of customers. And so you can have 20, 30% of your community, well, they're too poor to afford it or so on. You need to work and figure out, how do we empower them, find solutions so they can be connected to access education and healthcare and government services and information. So that digital equity piece, we don't spend a huge amount of time in this program on some of those considerations because we're so infrastructure focused, but we still recognize that's an important part of the initiative to make sure that every customer, every citizen counts as a customer, and we get them online and connected, knowing that both availability of internet and affordability of internet are two critical pieces. Good, so we're at our time. We always try and start on time and end on time. And as I mentioned, Reed and I are both at your service. Nancy's manages the survey process, so she's a first point of contact there. And we're here to assist, and I guess we'll see you in a couple weeks, but if you want to call and or write and with questions, comments, feel free to reach out. Always happy to get you off on the right foot. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, nice meeting y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. You want this to be sent to anyone who's signed up so far, plus those initial leads?
Yes,
Okay, with some of the links from the chat and so on.
that'd be great.
And slides, but I'll wait for Reed's curated content there. Reed just takes such an edge off. It's like you dedicate your brain space to it, and yeah, I appreciate it.
It's not hard, but it's something you have to think about. So
it's something, yeah.
Yeah. And I found the map, Bill. Sorry, I missed you asked and I missed that third edit.
I know.
Yeah.
The merits.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
unfortunately, I tried to look at, I printed it out, but even with my glasses, I can't see. The map is too small the way I put it on there. So people know, of course, where they live, but I don't know. I know Massac
Yeah, the map's for you.
Yeah. So I'd have to get my magnifying glass out and maybe get Shabika to put some better labels in there so I can see.
No, very
right.
good.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Thanks so much.
Have a great weekend.
Yes, you
You too.
too. Thanks.
Bye.